When I met Claire, she was like a quiet sunrise after years of storms. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy, just a calm, steady warmth that made me believe peace was finally possible. I was 38, coming out of a long stretch of loneliness after my divorce. She was 34, sharp, confident, and full of a kind of grace that pulled people toward her. We met at a charity dinner, one of those pretentious networking events where everyone pretends to care about something other than being seen. I remember the first thing she said to me. "You look like someone who hates being here," she laughed, holding her wine glass with a kind of deliberate ease. She wasn't wrong. I told her I was there because my business partner thought it would look good for our image. She smiled. "So, image matters to you too." It began with conversations, long, easy ones that stretched past midnight. She worked in marketing, freelanced mostly, and said she liked stories that sell truth wrapped in pretty lies. I laughed at that, not realizing how painfully ironic it would one day sound. We moved in together after a year. I thought it was fast, but she convinced me otherwise. "Why wait for what feels right?" she'd said one night, lying in bed with her hair draped over my chest. I'd never been so sure of anything in my life. The first cracks appeared almost invisibly, tiny things that, at the time, I brushed off as normal relationship friction. Late nights at work, a few unread messages, her phone always face down. She'd always been private, so I told myself not to pry. Then came the dinner with her coworkers. She was radiant that night, dressed in a deep emerald dress that made every head turn. I remember how proud I felt walking beside her. She introduced me to everyone, except one man, a tall, well-groomed guy with a calm arrogance about him. When I asked who he was, he said, "Oh, that's Eric. Just a client, just a client." But I noticed how his eyes lingered a little too long when she spoke. How her laugh, her real laugh, the one I hadn't heard in weeks, surfaced effortlessly around him. I swallowed the unease and smiled through it. After all, jealousy never made anyone look good. Weeks passed. Claire grew distant, and I tried to be understanding. I told myself she was tired, overworked. I bought her flowers, cooked dinner, left small notes on the mirror like we used to do in the beginning. The notes disappeared unread. Then, one evening, I came home early. Her car was in the driveway, but the lights inside were dim. I walked in quietly, wanting to surprise her. From the hallway, I could hear faint music and a man's voice. I stopped breathing. For a few seconds, I convinced myself it was a podcast, or maybe a call. But then I heard it again, laughter, soft, intimate, followed by her whisper, "Stop, he might come home." My heart stopped. I froze in the dark, staring at the closed bedroom door. Every instinct screamed at me to open it, to catch them, to make it stop. But I didn't. I backed away slowly, walked out of the house, and sat in my car in the driveway. I must have stayed there for an hour, maybe two. No tears, no shouting, just silence. My hands were shaking, but my mind was unnervingly calm. I didn't go back inside that night. I checked into a motel. At 3:17 a.m., I got a text from her. "Where are you? I thought you were working late." I stared at the screen, then typed back, "Yeah, work ran longer than expected." She replied with a heart emoji. That was the moment something inside me changed. I realized I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I was going to study her, watch her, let her lies build walls around her until she couldn't tell where truth ended and deception began. If she wanted to live in fiction, I'd become the author. That night, I started a private file on my laptop. I named it C. Inside, I wrote one sentence. "Every lie burns eventually. I'll just decide when the fire starts." For the next few weeks, I became invisible, deliberately, methodically invisible. To her, I was the same man she'd always known, smiling when needed, calm, predictable. But in the background, I was something else entirely. It started small. I moved the Wi-Fi router into the living room under the pretense that the signal was bad upstairs. What she didn't know was that I had installed a monitoring extension on our home network. Every device connected to it, including her phone, her laptop, now left behind a trail. I learned more about Claire in 7 days than I had in 2 years. The first thing I noticed was the name. It showed up in her messages, her emails, even her digital calendar. The timestamps matched perfectly with the nights she said she had client dinners. But he wasn't a client, he was an architect, married, 2 kids. His real name was Eric Hale. He lived across town, but they met in hotels halfway between. The receipts were all there: restaurant reservations, car rentals, a shared playlist titled City Nights. I listened to one of the songs, Slow Burn by Casey Musgraves. She'd once said it reminded her of us. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just wrote it all down. Every detail, every date, every lie. It became an obsession, not of heartbreak, but precision. I'd wake up, make coffee, sit at my desk, and document her life. I learned her patterns, her tells, how she smiled differently when she texted him, how her hair was always slightly curled on days she planned to see him, how her perfume changed from floral to something darker, heavier. The first time I followed her, it was raining. I remember because I almost laughed at how cliché it felt, a man tailing his lover under a gray sky. She was wearing that same emerald dress from the dinner, the one that used to make me proud. She drove 30 minutes out of town to a boutique hotel called the Meriden. I waited across the street, watching from my car as she met him in the lobby. They didn't kiss, not right away. She hesitated, glancing around like a nervous teenager, before he touched her hand and leaned in close. And then she smiled. That same smile she used to give me, the one that made me believe in forever. Something broke quietly inside me. Not an explosion, not rage. Just a clean, cold snap. I took photos. Not because I wanted to blackmail her, not yet, but because I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Proof that everything I'd loved was built on lies. When she came home that night, she acted like nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek, poured herself a glass of wine, and told me she was exhausted. I watched her laugh at something on TV, her bare feet tucked under her on the couch, and realized I didn't even know who I was looking at anymore. That night, as she slept beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I could hear her soft breathing, peaceful, innocent, and all I could think was how perfect her performance was. That's when the idea came. Not confrontation, not exposure, something far more deliberate. I wasn't going to just reveal her truth. I was going to make her live it. I started small. I changed her work schedule notifications. A missed meeting here, a forgotten deadline there. I'd intercept her client emails, subtly rearranging them to cause confusion. She began to complain that she was losing focus, that she couldn't remember things. I played the role of the supportive partner, comforting, patient, always there. You've just been stressed, I'd say. Brushing her hair from her face, inside, I was cataloging every reaction. Every moment of doubt she had. It was working, but the real plan, the one I was building piece by piece, required patience. I needed her to crumble slowly, to feel the same uncertainty I'd felt every time she looked me in the eyes and lied. Because betrayal shouldn't end with anger. It should end with understanding, the kind that hurts to breathe. And by the time she understood what she'd done, it would already be too late. 3 weeks? That's how long it took before the first real fracture appeared. Claire was still pretending everything was fine, but I could see it in the way her eyes lingered on nothing for too long. The way she kept forgetting small things, like where she'd put her keys, or whether she'd already replied to an email. I had carefully set those dominoes in motion, and now I was watching them begin to fall. It started one Thursday morning. She was late for work, really late, and when she opened her phone, her calendar showed a meeting that didn't exist. A client review scheduled for 9 o'clock a.m. at a downtown address. I had added it the night before. She rushed out, flustered, barely grabbing her coffee. I followed from a distance, heaping my car 2 blocks behind hers. She arrived at the empty building exactly on time, only to realize there was no meeting, no client, just a vacant office suite. When she returned home that night, she looked smart, like a piece of her had been quietly taken away. "You ever feel like you're losing your mind?" she asked, half laughing as she poured wine into a glass. I smiled. More often than I'd like to admit. That was the beauty of it. She was confiding in the man who was orchestrating her unraveling. I didn't stop there. Over the next few days, I changed her alarm times, deleted text messages, moved things around the house. Tiny adjustments. Small enough to make her doubt herself, big enough to make her question reality. But then something happened that wasn't part of the plan. Eric, her lover, started calling less. I knew because her phone logs changed. Fewer late-night texts, fewer private calls. He was pulling back. I should have been glad. It meant she was losing both of us. But instead, I felt something darker. Jealousy. Not of her affection. That was long gone. But of the power he still had. He could hurt her with silence, just like she had hurt me. And it enraged me that I wasn't the only one capable of doing it. So I changed tactics. Instead of tormenting her subtly, I decided to bring the storm closer. It was a Friday night when I planted the first seed. We were sitting on the couch eating takeout when I casually asked, "Do you ever wonder if people can sense when someone's lying to them?" She froze, a noodle halfway to her mouth. "What?" I shrugged, pretending to think. "Like, if you look at someone long enough, you can tell what they're hiding." She gave me a strange look, searching my face. "Why are you asking me that?" "Just a thought," I said, smiling faintly. She tried to laugh it off, but I could see her pulse quicken in her neck. That's when I knew she felt it, the shift, the quiet suspicion that something was wrong. The next morning, I sent her an anonymous text. Just one sentence. "He's lying to you, too." She went pale when she read it, her fingers trembling. "I think someone's trying to mess with me," she said, handing me the phone. I looked at the screen, feigning confusion. Probably spam, but I could see it in her eyes. She didn't believe that. For the first time, she looked truly afraid. I watched her all weekend. She barely ate, barely spoke. She checked her phone constantly, stared into the mirror longer than usual. The confident woman I once loved was cracking piece by fragile piece. But something unexpected happened to me in return. As I watched her break, I started to feel it, guilt, not the sharp kind, but a dull ache somewhere behind my chest. I reminded myself that she deserved it, that this was justice, not cruelty. Yet when I saw her sit on the edge of our bed, clutching her phone like a lifeline, whispering to herself, "What's happening to me?" I hesitated. Was I punishing her? Or was I just becoming like her, deceitful, manipulative, addicted to control? That night, she asked me if we could go away for the weekend. "Just you and me," she said softly. "I think I need to clear my head." I said yes, because I already knew where we'd go. And I already knew what I'd do there. It wouldn't just be another game of confusion. No, it would be the final act before the truth came crashing down. The question wasn't whether I'd destroy her. It was whether I'd still recognize myself when it was over. The cabin was 3 hours north of the city, the kind of place where cell service dies halfway up the mountain, and the silence is so deep it almost feels like it's listening to you. Claire insisted we take her car. She said she needed to feel like we were escaping, though I could tell she was trying to reclaim some control. I let her drive, watching her hands tighten around the steering wheel whenever she thought I wasn't looking. The road stretched endlessly, twisting through pine forests and cold mist. For the first hour, neither of us spoke. The tension between us wasn't anger, it was awareness. She knew something was wrong. I knew she knew. But neither of us was ready to admit it aloud. When we arrived, she smiled for the first time in weeks. "This place is beautiful," she said, stepping out into the crisp air. It was. The cabin sat on a ridge overlooking a frozen lake, the glassy surface reflecting the bruised sky. Inside, it smelled of cedar and dust, the fireplace waiting patiently for a spark. I built the fire while she unpacked. The crackle of burning wood filled the silence, and for a brief moment, it felt almost normal, like we were two people trying to fix something broken, not two ghosts dancing around a secret neither could bury. That night, over wine, she finally spoke. "Daniel," she began quietly, "do you ever feel like you're being punished?" The question hit me like a blade wrapped in silk. I forced a calm smile. "For what?" She hesitated, staring into her glass. "For choices. For hurting people who didn't deserve it." I leaned back, studying her. "Is that how you feel?" Her eyes flickered toward the fire. "I don't know. Lately it feels like everything I touch turns to ash. I can't sleep. I keep hearing things. Seeing things." "Like what?" I asked, though I already knew. She exhaled shakily. "Messages. From? I don't even know who. Someone's trying to get inside my head." I stayed silent, letting her fill the silence with her fear. After a long pause, she whispered, "I think someone knows." I looked at her, feigning confusion. "Knows what?" She swallowed hard. "About me, about what I did." My pulse quickened, but I kept my voice low. "Claire, what did you do?" She stared at me, then her eyes wide, as if she'd suddenly realized who she was sitting across from. "Daniel, if I tell you something, will you promise not to hate me?" I almost laughed, the bitter, ironic kind. "Depends on what it is." Her lips trembled. "I made a mistake. A horrible one. It wasn't supposed to happen." I let her speak. "It started as something small, a distraction. I didn't think it meant anything at first, but it became real. He made me feel like I wasn't invisible anymore." Her voice cracked. "But I ended it. Weeks ago, I swear. I was scared, Daniel. Scared of losing you." I stared at her across the table, my heart pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. She reached across, tears gathering in her eyes. "Can you forgive me?" The words I had been waiting months to hear, the confession, the guilt, the collapse, and yet, instead of triumph, all I felt was emptiness. I could have told her everything right then, that I knew, that I'd been the ghost in her phone, the whisper behind her fear, the architect of her torment, but I didn't, because, as I looked at her, broken and trembling, something inside me twisted. I realized this wasn't revenge anymore. It was cruelty, and I had become addicted to it. So I stood up slowly, walked to the window, and stared out into the dark woods. "I don't know if forgiveness is something I have left to give," I said quietly. Behind me, she began to sob, quietly, then louder, until the sound filled the cabin, and for the first time in months, I cried too. Not for her, for what I had become. When I finally turned back, she was asleep on the couch, her tear-streaked face softened by the firelight. I knelt beside her, brushed a strand of hair from her cheek, and whispered, "You took everything from me, and I still can't hate you." Then I stood and walked outside into the cold. The night was still, the air biting. I looked up at the stars, the same stars that had watched us fall apart, and realized that revenge hadn't freed me. It had chained me to her even more tightly. But the story wasn't finished yet, because in the distance, a phone buzzed in her bag, and I knew that message wasn't from me. Someone else knew too. Morning came slowly, dragging a pale light through the cracks in the blinds. The fire had died sometime during the night, leaving only a faint warmth in the air. Claire was still asleep, curled up under a blanket, her face peaceful in a way I hadn't seen in months. I sat by the window, watching frost melt off the branches outside, trying to make sense of the mess we had become. The silence was shattered by the buzz of her phone. It was the same sound I'd heard last night before stepping outside, only now, it wasn't from me. Her phone lit up again. Another message. I picked it up, my chest tightened as I read the words. "You can't hide from what you've done." No sender name, no number. Just that sentence, again and again, filling her inbox. My stomach dropped. That wasn't my work. Those weren't my messages. I'd stopped weeks ago, before I could think. The phone buzzed again. This time, there was an attachment, a photo. It was of us. Last night. taken from outside the cabin window. The reflection of the glass caught my breath. Someone had been there watching. I jolted up, scanning the woods beyond the cabin. Pines stood tall and still, blanketed in frost. But I felt it, that crawling sense of being watched, of eyes just beyond the line of sight. "Daniel." Claire's voice was druggy soft. "What's going on?" I turned. She rubbed her eyes, sitting up. "Who's been texting you?" I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. Her confusion was real, that raw, unguarded kind that can't be faked. "What are you talking about?" I tossed the phone onto the table. "Those messages. The ones about not hiding." She blinked, then went pale. Her lips parted but no sound came out. "You didn't send them?" I pressed. She shook her head. "No, I thought it was you." I froze. "What?" She swallowed hard. "The calls, the notes on my car, the pictures left at my office. I thought it was you trying to make me confess." Her words hit like ice water down my spine. I turned away, my throat tightening. It wasn't me. The air in the cabin turned heavy, suffocating. Outside, wind pressed against the windows like a warning. Claire stood trembling. "Then who the hell has been doing this?" The answer came too quickly, a knock on the door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. We both froze. Claire's breathing quickened. "Daniel." I motioned for her to stay quiet and stepped toward the door. My pulse thundered in my ears. When I opened it, the cold burst in, but no one was there, only an envelope, wedged neatly between the planks of the porch. I picked it up, tearing it open with shaking hands. Inside was a single photo, one I hadn't seen in years. It was from our wedding day, but someone had drawn a red X over my face. Claire gasped when she saw it. "Oh my God." On the back, written in jagged handwriting, "You took what wasn't yours. Now you'll pay for it." I felt the world tilt. My mind flashed through everything, the timing, the fear, the guilt, the man she'd cheated with, the one she swore she'd cut off. Who was he? I asked, my voice low. Who was the man, Claire? She backed away, tears in her eyes. "It doesn't matter anymore." "It does now," I roared. "Because whoever he was, he's here." Her silence told me everything. "His name's Ryan," she finally whispered. "He worked with me. He said he loved me. But when I ended it, he changed. He said he'd ruin me if I ever told you. And now he was keeping his promise." That night, I stayed awake by the fire, a gun on the table and the phone in my hand. The woods outside crackled with wind and shadows. At 2:14 a.m., another message came. "You can't protect her. Not anymore." Then a photo of the cabin, the window, me sitting there, staring at my phone. I lunged for the light switch, killing the lamp. The only glow left was the dying fire. Claire stirred in her sleep. I moved quietly to the window, staring into the dark, and there, between the trees, I saw it, a faint glimmer, a camera lens catching the FIRELIGHT. And then it vanished. I didn't sleep. Not that night, not after what came next, because by morning, the police would find Ryan's car abandoned at the base of the hill, engine still warm, driver's seat empty, his phone inside. And on the back of his phone case, scratched deep into the plastic, were 2 words, "I'm sorry." Claire never spoke again about that weekend. Neither did I. But sometimes, when I wake up at night and look out my window, I swear I can still see that faint glimmer in the dark, watching. Waiting. Because the truth is, lies don't die. They just find new ghosts to haunt.